literally doesn't matter what I build on the homestead, everything ends up turning into a barn temporarily, hopefully, as I figure things out. Let's talk about it. So I'm in the greenhouse, which is like my nice warm building, doesn't cost very much to heat. This isn't supposed to be a barn, but of course I do 10 million things as the multifaceted prepper, homesteader, crazy lunatic that I am. But we're hatching chicks, so we got, 100 heritage chicks in there and some turkeys. There's some bigger khaki Campbell ducks, which is the best egg-laying duck in here. They got their little pool and stuff. We had them in the main part of the greenhouse, and they took care of the slugs, but my wife is planting stuff in trays, so they were attacking that and pulling plants out. So now they graduated to there. But to put things in, we just hatched over 200 baby khaki Campbell ducks last night. So these little cuties, look at these guys. They're so cute. So I built this little brooding tower. It was my first little brooder. It worked for the small stuff we do. Now I just got one heat lamp for them in there, and then literally in a day or two, they're graduating to one of these with a heat lamp. Where I live, in case you're new to watching me, is in Saskatchewan, Canada. A few days ago, we were the coldest place on planet Earth. It was like -40, felt like -50 almost or something. So colder than Siberia, all of Saskatchewan, colder than the Arctic. You go visit Santa to warm up, right? So buildings are very, very, very important for where I live. Like food, water, shelter, security, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you live on the coldest place on the planet, shelter is like number one. So in the greenhouse here, it works very, very good. My heating bill for a 3,000 square foot greenhouse is $600 a year Canadian. So when the sun shines, it gets super hot in here. So I'm kind of observing and experimenting of how I do things with as little energy as possible and get production up in all different things. So from bananas to citrus to tomatoes and peppers and herbs and medicines to hatching chicks. We hatched all of our own chicks in our incubator, and my incubator is just in the shop in there. So the shop is part of a barn too. I'll just show you real quick, I guess. There's a pile of eggs I just did, and then our, Sportsman incubator, or this GOF brand. Works really, really good. Very high rate. I guess I'll show you. Oh, little duckies still hatching away. Can you see them in there? So as soon as they are fluffy feathers, then they graduate to the brooding tower, and then a few days later graduate to the brooding thing on the floor. Come on. Yeah, everything's a barn because it's cold AF where I live. My wife used to do home care, and she went to some rural places in Saskatchewan, and this isn't back in the day, this is today, but people that are trying to homestead, they would in the wintertime bring their animals into their homes. So they had chickens and turkeys and goats, big and baby goats, and a pig in their house where they're living with, because that's all they had. Now, I'm lucky enough that I don't have to make my house into a barn. That's one thing. No animals, no cats, no nothing. My house is very nice and clean, but I'm lucky that I have a greenhouse that I can do this. So this becomes a barn. So it's a lot of work to clean because this is an enclosed environment because of the plants. So I have to put lots of bedding and clean their stuff, kind of deep litter, and then put it just by the door so I can clean this out in the spring and stuff. But they literally won't survive anywhere else unless you do a building, kind of like my greenhouse, or just a building and have a massive heating bill, right? So in here, we kind of do that. In the greenhouse, I have had baby goats. The one year I remember it was -30 degrees Celsius on April 1st, which is kind of a rarity. It only happens occasionally. So of course, baby goats will not survive outside. So we built a little pen similar to this and put baby goats in there, or a bad mom goat, and then we're milking baby or feeding baby goats, bottle feeding them in here. But this really makes me think. So the craziness that I do, it's multifaceted everything. I won't go big into one thing, but in a 3,000 square foot greenhouse, it doesn't have to be a greenhouse. The building works so good with the design for the sun and super insulation and stuff. Now, the other night, it gets so humid in here that humid wants to escape everywhere. So it froze up my furnace, and I didn't realize till like the next morning, and it dropped to 44 degrees Fahrenheit in here. So that's for the bananas and tropical stuff. I have a natural gas furnace that I keep at 10 degrees minimum Celsius. But when it's minus 40 outside, that's pretty good. You know, without a furnace, you can drop it to freezing if I wasn't growing tropical plants. So a building like this, I could build it the same, but not put a heat source, no concrete, and just do my pens like this for brooding, grow out pens, hatching, whatever, kind of all along in a big building like this. 3,000 square feet, I wouldn't go any bigger than that, but to do a very low cost energy building. Now, of course, all the animals smell it up like ammonia and stuff, so you put some ventilation. Like, for instance, I did my experiment with the insulated semi-reefer. That's polycarbonate that I got to finish cutting in here. So it's a passive solar design, and then going to put an insulating little thing for at night. But that window's open. That's open a crack, and it is dry as a popcorn fart in here. That's all the ventilation you need, right? Works really good. Hey, do you have an egg for me? You do. Thank you. That's a nice one. So my layers are in there. They have no heat. There's a 50-watt heated watering thing and supplemental light. And it's not humid in there. People said, oh, you need ventilation and stuff. I have the door open a crack at each end, and it is dry in there. No fans needed. And they're laying 100% in minus 40, and that's good feed and supplemental light. So once the chickens get bigger and stuff. But when they're little like this, you can't do it. It doesn't matter what building. No amount of heat lamps is going to keep them surviving. It has to be a good temperature. But a building like this, so again, when I build a barn, you build it very similar. Where my barn, it has south windows. It's a little bit different. Not quite as much glazing. Maybe a quarter of the glazing or something. Yeah, about a quarter of the glazing on the south end. So it is still going to warm up. But you leave that open in the wintertime so the animals get fresh air, so it doesn't get stuffy. Now, it is going to smell. Doesn't matter what you do, just the nature of animals. But you build it like this, and you don't have to close it up completely. And then in the summertime, you open it up or put some fans, and the animals are shaded. So it's cooler in a building like this, because my sun only hits here in the summertime, and then it blasts everything in the wintertime. So a passive solar barn or a deep winter barn powered by the sun is, you know, it just also works. So I watch all these homesteading shows about people in the United States. And you guys, oh, it's going to get almost to freezing. I made my chickens some sweaters. And even Joel Salatin, who I really, really, you know, like some of his concepts, you know, but chicken tractors and things, that'll work for like 6 months of the year-ish. But the other 6 months where I live, it is a frozen hellscape outside. So you literally can't. Now, if you did a building like this, you could, in theory, plant some grasses and things. So no concrete. Like, these are just some of my thoughts, because what I'm trying to do is raise, it's like small farming, sustainable on a big level, but not big enough that you go into the commercial section of things, right? So you could plant grass and clover in almost like a pasture in a greenhouse like this, or something maybe, and then don't overpopulate it too bad, and have ranging chickens and poultry and different things. in a building like this, now it is going to freeze a little bit at night, but when it's minus 40 degrees Celsius at night, maybe it only gets to minus 10 in here. And then plus all those animals, so they give off heat too. But, oh man, so many ideas. But people think I'm all set up. I am not all set up. I don't know if I'll ever be, and I do too many things, right? It all at once, but I have to figure this stuff out. So in my barn that I got to finish, it's going to end up being half of it's like a grow out and brooding thing for in the winter time, because it's a high efficient building as well on the south part. And then when the chickens graduate to starting to lay, they can survive in minus 40 in a closed up thing with a little bit of ventilation, good feed, and they lay 100%, right? But when they're little, they can't survive that. So, yeah, aren't these ducks the cutest? They're the best egg-laying ducks. Khaki Campbell, cuties. And I forget when they get 6 or 8 weeks or something, they're 4 pounds, and they're decent roasters as well. So, I try to do things dual purpose as well, from a sustainable and preparedness-minded mindset. And then all these wood chips, when I clean this out, I literally get to mulch in there. So they're little poops and stuff is manure and good wood chip mulch. So it's kind of like permaculture as well, right? And when you do all this permaculture aspect of things, there's so many byproducts. So I crush these up. These could be added to a chicken feed, I guess, or fertilizer. You put for certain things on your plants. So you get a lot of eggshells. The eggs can also feed your pigs if you want, or if you have extra, you can't sell them all. Eggs to the pigs, eggs to your dogs and cats. You make your own dog food. Now, the byproduct when you do your butchering, of course, is you get carcasses and bones and blood and things. You can make your own bone meal, blood meal. I think there's something called a feather meal too. So, for the other aspects of things that I do, when it comes time to butchering a bunch of the duckies or whatever, then we get all these byproducts work for the other things that we do, just like their deep litter mulch that I keep wood chipping. So poop and wood chips and poop and wood chips, that literally is going right over there. It works really, really good. True permaculture doesn't almost work. The only examples like the Amazon, you still need somebody to mitigate and organize these things. So I still have to transport that to that. And, well, Dean, why don't you put your chicks on there? Well, we're growing stuff in there, so that doesn't really work. So I still need to, I get a resource and then I use it there. And then when we pull weeds, that's a resource, and they go to there and they make manure, and that makes fertilizer. And it's awesome. All these concepts work good, but it does get a little dusty in the greenhouse, and it does start to smell, and I have to keep them very clean because this is, again, so closed up. But so many ideas. And again, literally, I live on the coldest place on the planet occasionally. There's different things we have to do. So chicken tractors don't work. They work in the summertime. The farming types that we do here, it's all indoor commercial style animals. Essentially, animals never see the sunlight. And then commodity large scale farming just for the few months in the summertime. So you plant in the spring, harvest in the fall, and then do nothing else the rest of the year, right? But I'm trying to, obviously, if there's a few people, not very many people doing the things that I do, there is a demand, for what I do. So, but yeah, multifaceted homestead and getting set up. If everybody thinks that I'm all set up already, no, it's just endless figuring things out. Besides somebody building a structure and applying natural gas heat to it, there's not too many innovations and things happening. And what I'm trying to do is production up while costs down. And I like to, again, spend the money on infrastructure and things. Figure out how little systems like this work. Figure out what works best. I still need energy for a little heat lamp when they're babies. And I still need energy for that little heat lamp. But Yeah, everything is a barn. So, I don't know. Lots of ideas. Um, lots of ideas. Let me know what you think of some of those if you live in a very harsh part of the world, or if you live in the States where it kind of might freeze sometimes and you think, oh, this homesteading's tough where I live. Like, oh, boo-hoo, cry me a river. So, yeah, Joel Salatin principles in some ways where you can, but again, when you live in the Arctic tundra almost, some of those things don't work. So I like doing things the hard way. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.